Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to build this gorilla cart. I received this cart as a gift and as you can see the box is a little banged up. I think the shipper just slapped a label on it and then sent it out to be shipped. So I was a little worried that something might be broken. Taking a look at the front of the box, it has 4 features listed. 4-wheel stability, an easy to clean poly bed, 0-turn steering, and simple assembly. Out of those 4 features, the hardest for me to believe was the simple assembly claim. In my experience, when I've purchased things that need to be assembled, it usually turns into a bit of a headache. Either there's parts missing or the instructions are unclear, and it just takes me way longer than it should to put it together. Well, here it is. I was relieved when I opened the box and saw that nothing was damaged. Here's a close-up of the poly bed, and I apologize for the autofocus there, my phone was acting up. Here's a slow-motion beauty shot of the poly bed. Here is the rest of the contents of the box. As you can see, we have the handle, the poly bed, the 4 wheels, various pieces of metal that will attach to the poly bed, and the nuts and bolts that will be used to attach everything together. Here's a close-up of the nuts and bolts. You'll notice that they're broken up into sections and each section is numbered. These numbers correspond to the steps in the instructions. Here's a look at the instructions. At first glance, nothing looks too difficult to put together, but I was still a little worried about what I might encounter when I actually started to assemble the cart. You'll notice that the instruction has 8 steps, but that there are only 7 sections of nuts and bolts. That's because the 8th step is merely a demonstration of how to tilt the poly bed back. Here are the tools recommended for assembly. I opted to use a socket set because I prefer using it over a wrench. Okay, let's get started. First, use these 4 nuts and bolts to attach this piece to the poly bed here. There are 2 bolts for the bottom and 2 bolts for the front. The bolt head should be inside the poly bed like you see here. Next, use these 2 nuts, bolts, and washers to attach this piece to the bottom of the poly bed. You're going to use one set of nuts, bolts, and washers on the left side of the poly bed and the other set on the right. Again, the bolt head should be inside the poly bed and the nuts should be on the outside of the poly bed. The reason I bring this up twice is because I made this silly mistake and I had to go back and redo a lot of my work, which was frustrating and made assembly even longer. For step 3, we're going to take these 2 nuts, bolts, and washers and use them to attach this piece to the bottom of the poly bed right here. Here's a look at the instructions for reference on how this piece attaches to the poly bed. And again, make sure that the bolt heads are inside the poly bed and the nuts are on the outside. I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. Step 4 uses these 4 nuts, bolts, and washers to attach these 2 pieces to the bottom of the poly bed. Here's a look at the instructions for reference. When you're done, it should look like this. For step 5, you're going to use this nut and 2 washers to attach this piece to the piece from step 2. Here's a look at the instructions for reference. And here's how it should look when you're done. Step 6 is where the fun begins. You're going to use these 4 clips and washers to attach the 4 wheels to the cart. I'm calling it the cart now because the poly bed at this point should have a number of pieces attached to it. Here's a look at the instructions for reference. Also, after using the clips to attach the wheels to the cart, be sure to bend the clips to secure them. For step 7, use this nut, bolt, and washer to attach the handle to the cart. Here's another look at the instructions for reference. When you're done, it should look like this. Finally, we're on to step 8. As I mentioned earlier, this step just shows you how to tilt the bed of the cart back. To do so, just pull this handle on the front and tip the bed back. Here you can see that the bed tilts back so that it's almost completely vertical. Here's another angle to show you just how far back the bed can tilt. And here it is all put together. I hope this video was helpful and that you were able to learn from my mistakes. In hindsight, I think it was pretty easy to assemble, and had I paid more attention to the instructions, I probably could have avoided my mistake with the bolts. Anyway, good luck assembling the cart, and thanks for watching.